Okay, welcome back. In this video, I want to go over nested loops, but I will start off by looking at two-dimensional arrays because I felt as if I have not really covered two-dimensional arrays. In covering two-dimensional arrays, we will stumble upon having to use nested loops in order for us to display them into our console application. So here what I've done is that I've just went ahead and created a two-dimensional array. So it's an array of cars, right? So we have BMW X3, Audi RS6, a Mustang GT, a Dodge Demon, Corvette Z06, Mustang Shelby GT500, a Lamborghini Revuelto, a Ferrari Purosangue, and a Porsche 911 GT3. So here's how this entire thing basically looks like. So in a two-dimensional array, we basically have rows and columns, right? So you can think of a row as, say for example, you have 1 1 1, and then you have 2 2 2, and then you have 3 3 3. So you have 1 2 3 rows, but you have, well, I'm not gonna try to count this, but yeah, you have that many columns, right? Let me just make this much more simpler. Let's just do this. 1 1 1 1, right? 2 2 2 2, 3 3 3 3. So we have 1 2 3 rows, but we have 1 2 3 4 columns, right? So we have 3 rows and 3 columns, and it's exactly the same thing that's happening here. Is that we have the first row, right? The first row is this. This is the second row, and then this is the third row. So we have 3 rows, right? But then we have 1 2 3 columns, right? So each row has 3 columns. So that's really all you need to think about when you're looking at two-dimensional arrays, is that you just have rows and then columns. That's it, right? So yeah, that's what you need to look at. And so now it's time for us to get the size of our two-dimensional arrays. And so, excuse me, getting the size of our two-dimensional arrays is a bit different than if you had to get the size of a one-dimensional arrays. And it's different because it kind of requires a bit more steps, right? So let's just say rows is equals to size of cars, size of cars is equals to 0, right? And so now we have integer columns, and so now it's equals to size of cars, right? Sorry about that. Divided by size of cars, and then this time we're going to have 2 of those. So we have rows, and the difference between these two is that this one has 2 of these. The 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 reason behind that is because with the rows, as you can see here, is that it has 0, but we don't specify that there's 0, right? So you can think of it really like that. Like there's no real logic behind it, except this is just what we do, right? When we are looking at the rows, is that we can only realistically have one fixed value for the number of rows that we have. But when it comes to the columns, it kind of differs because we basically have two sort of elements to look at. We also somehow have to look at the rows, and then we also somehow have to look at the columns. Because if I'm saying to you, I want you to find row 2, column 3, right? So we're going to go down here and say row 2, there is the second row, column 3. So this is what we're looking at. So I just gave you 3 instructions. I said, look at row 2 in column 3. So you're going to have to look at the second row in the third column. So you can think of that that logic behind why there's two sort of places for indexing. It's the position for the row and then the position for the column, even though we only put it under one column variable. So this is where we basically use nested for loops. Like to say integer I is equals to 0, I less than rows I plus plus. And then you go down here again and you say for integer j is equals to 0, j is less than columns, right? And then and then j plus plus. And so then when we come down here, we then say see out. What are we see outing? We see outing cars, but we see outing cars as this, right? And then we come down here, and then we say we're gonna come down here. I think let's just leave it at that because we wanted to display those two things. I think we need to do this. Let's just leave a space, right? And then let's come down here and then say see out, right? New line character, right? And so let's just try to run that. Okay, I'm not too sure what's happening there, but it's not giving us anything at all. Let's try to run that again. Let's save it, right? Let me just see where I saved this. Save as no, it's saved in the in the wrong location, and that's why this thing was not working. Right? Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do. Okay, so now let's try to run it. Okay, so it looks weird, but let me just try to remove this line. Right? Let's try to put that new line character here. And let's see. Okay, so this is how it's displaying our entire thing. Let's try that. We're just trying to make it look pretty. That's it. Just trying to make it look pretty. I think we did this already, so let's just keep that there. And then now let's just come down here and put that there. Okay, that literally did absolutely nothing. But anyway, that's basically nested looping when you are looking at when you're looking at two-dimensional arrays, is that it's going to loop for the first time, it's going to loop for the second time. And so let me just do this, right? Let me try to demonstrate it in this way. So we have the first loop, right? The first for loop. The first for loop is I less than rows. How many rows do we have? We only have 3 rows. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, right? But now the thing is, we have another loop within that same loop. But this loop is only looping how many times? 3 times as well. So we also have 1, 2, 3. Right, so you can think of it like, let me just do this. Let me put this there. Nope, let's just comment this. Let me put that there. And then let me take that and put it there. Sorry, and then put it there. And then let me put that there, right? So you can think of it like this, right? So this 1, 2, 3. But then inside of it, there's also a 1, 2, 3, right? So whatever happens inside stays inside, but this outer bracket has access to this this 1, 2, 3, which is why here we said I multiplied by j. There's a reason why we did not multiply, sorry, there's a reason why we displayed our two-dimensional arrays within our nested loop. There's a reason why we displayed it within here. It's because the j does not have access, or the j is non-existent outside of this for loop. the j is only existent within this for loop, but the I is existent in both of these for loops, because this for loop, right, this entire for loop, this for loop right here, right, this for loop falls within this for loop. So you can think of the J for loop as the child, right? You can think of the J for loop as a child and the I for loop as the parent, right? So the I for loop, when I say the I for loop, I mean this, because we have integer I. So the I for loop basically has access to this inner loop, but then this inner loop cannot be accessed outside of the for loop of j. So let me do this to practically show you guys what I'm talking about. So let's just do this. Display j, right? And let's just do that and see what will happen. Okay, j was not declared in this scope. So the reason being, it's because I said to you guys, I keep on iterating the same thing, which is that j is only existent in the inner loop. If you were to display it, or if you were to try and access it outside of this of the j loop, or if you were to try and access it in the I loop, then it would give you an error because it is non-existent, right? It will give you a declaration error. So that is just nested loops using two-dimensional arrays.